Hi guys, it's me UBprogrammer and welcome to the lecture 4 of OS series. And in this lecture we are focusing on the structure system of the OS, so like how OS are being developed in the sense of structure. So the first type of the structure is the simple structure, which is just write the code in whatever way you want. So OS with no particular structure, so no layers, no anything, but emulation of layer is there, but no actual structure, right? So these are also called the monolithic OS, which is DOS and Unix. So these are all the old ones. I'm sure no one used that nowadays, but you should know about that because that's how things started, right? We should know about that. And so the Unix OS system is like user, then shell library, which is like the system calls. The library will call the system call, then kernel, then we have the driver and the hardware. So that's how the control is being transferred to the hardware, or the command is being transferred to the hardware, direct to the user to the hardware, and in between we have all that things. So these systems are really hard to uh, you can say implement in practice, right? So that's why we are not gonna use JAD if we are creating any OS, right? Then we got microkernel structure, uh, in which you can see from the name microkernel. So the code part of the OS is really small, and we do it intentionally because it is easy to manage afterwards, right? So most of the commands, or most of the process are being done through the executable program, or the user, right, itself. And the example are the Mac and Mac OS X server. So this is the quite popular example of the microkernel, right? So in this OS, most application run through their server. So in these OS, you install a separate service for like every application. So you want to run a game, so you have to install that specific server which will run that game. So OS has no capability to run your game because it has really small code, but it can allow to install servers to run different things, right? And virtual machine structure, obviously we have talked about, like you have Windows, you want to install Linux on that, you create a virtual memory in that Windows, which is the emulation of your hardware, and you install the Linux on that. It is really difficult to implement, but we have tools like VMware and VirtualBox which can help you to implement that. And when you will be implement that, it will give you really benefits, right? So OS design and implementation, let's talk about that. So there are two things: mechanism and policies. Mechanism is the way how things will be done, and policies are all the, as the name suggests, rules, regulations, like what a process can do in its limitation and things like that. So it is like the best way, like mechanism and policies should be dealt as the separate entity, or dealt separately, right? And mechanism are should be really well defined, like how a process should be done. It should be well defined in the OS, but the policies should be flexible, should be modifiable by the administrator or the super user, which has obviously bought the computer hardware. So he should decide all the rules and regulation of the computer system. Okay, let's see the path in the Linux. There are two type of path. Linux is the operating system, right? I hope you know about that. And the relative path and the absolute path. So relative path is when you are in a directory and you got another directory in the current directory, right? So if you are accessing that client 1 directory, so it assumes that uh, client 1 directory will be in the freelance directory, and freelance directory will be in your current directory from where you are executing your code. I hope you understand that. It's a bit confusing, but really simple thing, and you have to see the difference here between the absolute and relative. The absolute path has that slash in the beginning, which indicate the root, because in the Linux we have all the directories under the root directory. So we have root, and then work, then freelance, then client 1. So it starts from the root and assume work is in your root directory. So this directory will be in your root directory, right? So this is the absolute path, like the complete path. Relative path is the path starting from your current directory. Okay, let's see some directories, some common directories in the Linux operating system. So this is a slash is the indicates the root directory, and all other directories are inside or under that root directory. Bin directory contain all the executable programs. So you install a program like Google Chrome, it will be the executable file of that Chrome will be in the bin. Then you got boot, which contain the boot files of the system, and the kernel image, so kernel code also will be there. And the dev contain the files for your devices attached to the computer system. Then etc, which has the information of the user. Then home, which has the all the user directory, so whatever you got in your system is in the home, right? And then the lib, which are all the programming languages installed files, right? So you got like you set up the C++ environment, so all of that files will be in the lib. Then sbin, which are for the super user, contain all files for that. tmp, so you created you open a you can say a program, and if that program wants to create some files which are temporary, it's just for the running purpose of that program, it will create in that tmp directory. Then the user, usr, obviously name suggests, like all the file of the users which are shareable and read only files. Then we have var, these are all the variable files, like when you are not sure that what will be a size of the file, like a log file which can be increased from time to time, you keep it in the var, or os will keep it in the var, because these are all the services of os. And one thing to know about, these all directories are under the root directory. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, So that was it for the lecture 4 of the OS, and I will meet you in the next lecture. Thanks for watching.